Hello everyone, this is your boy Bhupinder Gujjar and welcome back to my channel. Today this video is going to be a little special because I'm going to talk one of the best pro wrestler in this business. This guy don't need an introduction. This guy is like at the top in the food chain. My very good friend Speedball Mike Belly.
Hello. So I'm disappointed right now.
Okay.
Because I was expecting you to do the intro in Hindi,
Okay.
as you usually do. When I normally watch your vlog, I look forward to hearing the beautiful.
So let's
intro
start
in
it.
Hindi.
Let's start it again. हेलो एवरीवन, मैं हूं आपका अपना भूपिंदर गुज्जर और आज मेरे साथ हैं मेरे दोस्त स्पीडबॉल माइक बेली. बहुत ही नेक्स्ट लेवल रेसलर है, टॉप लेवल रेसलर है और इनको जो एक्सपीरियंस है ओवर 20 ईयर्स. मेरी भी इतनी एज नहीं होगी जितना इनको एक्सपीरियंस होगा. आई एम जस्ट टेलिंग दैट यू हैव more experience than my age.
So I love it, and my favorite part of listening to you do those intros is how you go back and forth between the English and Hindi, and you like
Okay.
top wrestler, and then
So you can understand what I'm
most
saying.
of it. Yeah.
Okay guys, तो आज मैंने सोचा कि थोड़ा सा कुछ अलग हो जाए स्पीडबॉल के साथ. I just wanted to talk, I wanted to listen इनके views क्या हैं about wrestling, about personal life. Not too much into personal life, but I want to know, like, bro, you have 20 plus years of experience in pro wrestling, right?
I started taking bookings in wrestling like once or twice a week
Okay.
in January 2016. So
Okay.
it's been almost
Oh.
18 years, 18 or 17?
18. Okay.
Yeah, 18 years.
Never mind, but still बहुत ज़्यादा experience है. And
It's still a lot.
bro, that's a lot.
So it's still a full career. What would you guess the average career span of a pro wrestler is? Keeping in mind that not everyone ends up making a living at pro wrestling, but a lot of people like have a couple matches, a year of matches, 2 years of matches, and then quit. Like the
Yes.
average career span must be what?
15?
I would say 5 at most.
At 5.
So think about all the wrestlers in the world, right?
Okay.
How many of them do you think stick around for 10 years, and how many of them do it for 1 or 2 years and then stop?
You're right.
Probably
You're
down
right.
to 5 years. So I'm triple that.
So I think I'm not sure where exactly to start because you have lots of stuff to talk about. But I think let's start Speedball as a wrestler. Like, what's this pro wrestling made any difference in your psychology, in your life? And like, is it the same Speedball who were like 5-6 years ago? Or because you are at top right now. So is it changed you anything in your like
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my greatest accomplishment in professional wrestling is just that I've been able to have every year of my career be better than the last year.
Okay.
So in terms of like major improvements or major like changes in philosophy or how I do things, there haven't been any in a long time. But there's still been like progress and just like keeping the same but better. But in the first like several years of my career, there was a lot of coming from a Taekwondo background
Okay.
of like figuring out that healthy balance between I'm just doing pro wrestling like any other pro wrestler, and then I'm foregoing my very specific skill set, and then trying to do too much martial arts and too many acrobatics and not enough pro wrestling that is like too difficult to work with other people. So there's been a long journey of like going back and forth until I was able to find a healthy middle.
Exactly.
And then,
So I want to ask you a question. Like, your martial arts, how much it helped you in pro wrestling? Like, I saw your moves. I love. I was watching your stuff, trying to study it, but I saw lots of kicks in there, lots of martial arts. So, what do you say about that?
So definitely, it helped a lot. When you see most of my wrestling now, it's mostly kicks, and the thing that I use to make myself stand out from all the other excellent professional wrestlers is the kicking and the martial arts.
That makes you different, though.
That makes me different. But like more importantly than the martial arts themselves is all the time I spent learning how to learn before I got into professional wrestling.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes any sense, but like when I started taking professional wrestling training, professional wrestling is incredibly difficult, right?
Yeah.
And just to have a slight detour, I think you can treat it a lot more like MMA.
Okay.
Right? Where when you learn, for example, you're going to learn boxing, right? You only get to focus on boxing, and you have time to, learn the punches and the techniques.
Yeah.
But MMA is extremely multifaceted, right? You have the grappling, the striking, the wrestling. Everything gets put together. So when an adult joins an MMA gym, and I'm stealing this from the, do you know George St. Pierre?
No, I'm sorry.
He's from Montreal.
Okay.
He's from Quebec, like me, and he's a former welterweight champion. His
Alright.
coach in an interview was saying this, that when you get adult MMA fighters that come into a gym, you can't teach them every skill. You have to
Okay.
take what they have and learn how to use it.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I feel like wrestling is the same way. You couldn't teach, like an adult who wants to start pro wrestling, you couldn't teach them like striking, grappling, athletics, acting, as well as the rules of a pro wrestling match. You kind of have to take whatever they're good at already and learn how to work that into pro wrestling. And of course, everything else is going to be lacking behind. It's just a time thing. You can't train, you know what I mean? 10-hour days, 5 days a week.
100%. So Speedball, like, if you, right now you are like going as a pro wrestler, right? If not a pro wrestler, what career would you have choose?
So there was a time in my life.
Because I was always think about you, and you are, you know, most kindest person. You know, always, you know, just taking your time. And one thing I like about you, like if you don't agree on something, you just talk about it. You just say no.
Yes.
You know, I saw so many conversations where if you are not agree with someone, you just you give your points. Like
Yes.
that's what I like it. That's the biggest lesson too. After joining with Impact, like if you have your ideas, just share with them.
Yes, I'm very strong on that. I do a lot of seminars for professional wrestling and a lot of coaching and teaching. And the thing I hate the most in professional wrestling is the old adage of when a veteran is talking, mouth shut, ears open. You don't talk back. Because I think that doesn't work. If I'm trying to explain something to you,
Yeah.
and if it's not a conversation, if you can't tell me why you wanted to do it this way, then what I'm saying is useless. And I always think like there's always in pro wrestling or in sports, there's always a middle ground, and you get there with discussion.
100%.
And if I just like climb up and say no, or decide to go with the yes, then we're not getting anywhere.
But definitely with respect.
Always with respect, always
Yes.
being polite, and that's the most important thing, is the understanding that we're both working towards the same goal, which is, you know, putting
Yes.
on a great show in the ring. And
Yeah.
if we're both like in agreement that we're not trying to do each other harm, then I feel like any conversation is valid.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I ask like loads of questions. And I know like no question is a stupid question, right?
Yes,
You can ask
completely.
whatever you wanted to ask. And let's go back to your like profession. What
Yes.
would be your
Well, yeah.
profession?
So there's a lot of things that I could have done, but I feel like even if it wasn't pro wrestling, I would have found something physical to do.
Okay.
Like I would have, you know, personal training or maybe teaching
so
martial
in
arts or something.
sports.
That's what I think. But also, before I was a pro wrestler, I went to cooking school.
Okay.
So I worked as a chef, which for a little
You're not
bit.
gonna believe like I have told you in my mind like as a chef.
Really?
Yeah.
That makes
I was
sense.
thinking, I was driving today and I was thinking like Speedball is like a great guy. I was just, you know, I was like, I think he's gonna be a chef, if not a pro wrestler.
So I think that in the way, like, I make a lot of parallels between cooking and professional wrestling.
Okay.
And like it works that way in my mind. Also, it's explained very well. Like one of the things is, you know, how do you remember a professional wrestling match, right? You have to divide it in parts. That's the number one rule.
100%.
And if I gave you a long list of ingredients and said make a meal, you would just get lost. But if I gave you, this is an appetizer, this is an entree, this is the main course, and this is the dessert, these are the ingredients for each, you'd be able to make a meal
Yeah,
out of that, right? Instead of
100%.
so there's a lot of, that's one of many little analogies that I think work very well for that. But I think in terms of like making a chef making a venue is like a booker making a card. A cook at a station is like working a match. I think there's a lot of little parallels that work very well. And the thinking I think works very well for both.
100%, brother. I like the way you break down things and explain. Like,
Yes.
That's everything I know, because you told me like, just feel how you want to perform in a ring, right?
Yes.
And that thing is, I'm still learning, but that
Yes.
really kind of
I'm
took me
still
to,
learning.
yeah. 100%. We are always learning, but as I said, you are at top in the food chain.
Thank you.
And I don't want to take you too much time, but I want to ask you this question.
Yeah, no problem.
Like, as I'm telling you guys again, like Speedball is one of the best pro wrestler. How you are so calm? How you are just keeping everything in your control? How you don't have any, you don't show off anything. You know what you are, and you just have a rhythm. You are in your peace.
I'm very. I've been doing this for a very long time. Is the main answer.
Okay.
And I know which pieces to be anxious about. And I know how to control the amount of anxiety that goes into a match.
Okay.
I know when to make things difficult and I know when to keep them easy. And there's I'm always nervous. I'm always anxious.
Oh, really?
Before a match, always, 100% of the time.
So yeah, I just want to add in this question. Like, I get so nervous before my match. Like, are you still nervous?
Always, every time. Because there's always going to be one thing, right? I try very hard to make my matches as easy as possible for me.
Okay.
Because something is always going to end up being difficult. For example, in TV wrestling, my matches are simpler than they are on the independents always because time is very strict.
Okay.
And that's always a great source of anxiety for me. But instead of just walking around or punching stuff or throwing up or going crazy, I have the wisdom to be able to just visualize and think, okay, I have this problem, this one thing is making me nervous. What are the steps I can take in order to make that easier? And oftentimes, for example, going back with time making me nervous as it often does, going through my head and really making an effort to break down the match time-wise and figure out, okay, when we're at this point, that we should have this much time left, and then I can make this longer or shorter if I need to.
Okay.
And just, again, going through it. But that's knowledge, and I know this from having faced those problems before, having messed up, and now thinking, what can I do to not mess this up? And so when
Okay.
I'm nervous about messing up again, I think, okay, what are the steps? What can I do to prevent this? Go through it in my head, and it usually ends up working. So I'm nervous, but it all just... The
I think-
manifestation of my anxiety just happens in here.
So I think once you are out in a ring and then everything, your nervousness goes away.
Usually,
Usually?
yeah. But again, oftentimes a majority is I'll do the first physical part of the match will happen, and then we slow down, and then the nerves go down. I'm like, okay, we're good.
Okay, that's a lot to learn. Still, while talking to you, bro, I'm still, I have great ideas coming up.
Appreciate that.
And last question, I
Yes.
promise. What's the best advice you ever got in your life and you want to give it to whoever watching this, including me?
Having a pet monkey is like having a baby that will never grow up and can kill you.
Okay.
So don't get a monkey as a pet.
Okay. So I'll try to explain in Hindi. So गाइस, कहने का मतलब ये है कि भाई अपने कंट्रोल में रहिए. अगर मंकी आपके पास है तो उसको सिखाइए. अगर आप उसको हमेशा अपने साथ रखोगे तो वो आपके लिए दिक्कत करेगा और आपको जान से भी मार सकता है. If I'm not wrong. If I'm wrong, you can correct me in comment section. And yes, Speedball does have his own YouTube channel, Speedball Mike Bailey, right? If I'm not wrong.
Speedball Mike Bailey on YouTube. I'm also on Twitch at Speedballbailey, where we watch wrestling, and Twitter and Instagram, Speedballbailey, and TikTok.
And guys, please subscribe Speedball's channel because you're gonna learn a lot every time he's posting great content. Show some love and show some support. So I'm gonna be back with you with some other new video. And till then, take care. And Speedball, thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you.
My man.